I'm going to do an insight video today. I've been talking over the last couple of days very much around sort of the expansion and the opening of energy, and each of us opening up and becoming more of these channels to open up our consciousness, open up our vibration, open up our frequency, which connects directly to the universal law of frequency and vibration. And everything is around vibration and frequency. The whole universe is created through vibration and frequency. And as we start to open up as channels and we start to integrate that, and vibration frequency works on many levels. It works infinitely. You know, it works on all creation. You know, everything that's in physical matter is vibrating with a frequency. And as we start to connect into our own source light creation and our own essence, we start to realize that we have a vibration. But we also realize that as a spiritual being, we have many sort of levels to our own vibration. And ascension is essentially part of this process. I mean, the more that our vibration and our frequency opens up to the universal frequency or the source frequency, we start to open up and receive more energy, more light, more light, more energy. But we also expand and open up to like different levels of consciousness. And with consciousness comes wisdom and understanding, because as our consciousness expands, it integrates, and it integrates with like the higher consciousness, collective consciousness of the universe, the universal source, or the source light. And what we start to realize is that this consciousness is connected to infinite consciousness, and in that sense, this is how we connect to the masters, the angels, the universal teachers. They are all part of this infinite collective consciousness. When you talk about things like the White Brotherhood, which is a collective beings, they're a collective beings of masters and universal teachers that look over the planet, and they're on a very sort of high frequency of consciousness because they're connected to the universal source. And when we start to open up our own sort of like consciousness and our own frequency, which is vibration again, the more light, the more energy that we harness, the more we become open, the more we start to vibrate on a level where we become more spiritually aligned. And when we become more spiritually aligned, this is how we start to open up as one sort of channels to receive that information. But we start to open up our own universal channel, and we start to open up that to this universal light and this universal consciousness. And this is what this time's about. The more we start to do that, the more we become aligned. We start to receive information. We start to receive that intuition, that insight, that wisdom, that information. And then each and every one of us are a channel for that, and each and every one of us needs to develop this channel as spiritual beings so we can start to open up. The masters are giving us insight and understanding and wisdom. This is why I talk about the universal laws, because the universal laws are like a blueprint. They're a blueprint to live in a way more spiritual way. But they're also, the universal laws are like a blueprint that gives us understanding of how the universe works and how we can work within the universe and work with the universe and align to it. And this is why things like the universal law of like oneness, the fact that all things are connected, and the more that we understand this is about our expansion again. This is about our consciousness. This is about the ascension. We start to open up, and we start to know that, and we're aware that there's universal beings around us that are working with us, like the archangels, the ascended masters, and like I said, the universal teachers that are here. But obviously, the ascended masters are universal teachers, and in a sense, the archangels are teachers as well, because they give us knowledge and wisdom, and they bring us back into harmony, they bring us back into balance and alignment with what we call our higher self, which is again this universal or infinite self that's connected to the universal source. The universe is made up of many dimensions and many different realities, which we are only one. However, we are connected. We're connected to all the other dimensions and realities. Then the more we open up, the more we expand, the more we become aligned with them. And this is why it's so important that we all open up our own channel. But the first sort of stage of opening up your channel is to become aware. Become aware that you are this being, this spiritual being that can receive insight, that can receive messages. And it's about sort of starting to understand and see that flow. I've talked about over the last couple of days the flow of the universe, the universal flow, which is the universal intelligence, the divine intelligence that flows into each and every one of us. The more we're open and the more we expand and the more we start to access that channel, our own individual channel, the more we can start to see and receive information and messages. But we're also, the more we can then start to integrate or express our soul qualities, our soul wisdom as well. Each and every one of us, before we come down on this planet, we're part of that universal source and consciousness. We were in the spirit world, and we were on a certain level of consciousness. Um, and that level of consciousness where we were had certain sort of like vibration and frequency, and had spiritual sort of like qualities and wisdom that we sort of like we were living in and we were connected to. And when we come down to this planet, we come down and we're incarnated, and part of our soul purpose is to express those soul qualities and to awaken to them, to bring those qualities to this time and this age, because this is what's needed. And this is what, um, is how like spiritual sort of like cultures of growth have been developed in many, many, many different cycles of not it's not even development, but it's cycles of like creation, and cycles of consciousness, and cycles of that have sort of like helped to create and manifest different realities. And this is the way it works. This is the way it works in the spiritual life. And again, when I talk about the universal law of rhythm, this is why the universal law of rhythm connects in, because the universal like rhythm is cycles. It's cycles of expansion. It's cycles of growth. It's cycles of awareness. And it's these cycles are what helps create and manifest. And the more that you sort of come into the universal law of rhythm, the more you start to see, within your reality, within your life, sort of like insight. You gain insights and you gain awareness, but you start to see the signs, or start to read the information. And the universal source is always working with us. It's always flowing with us. And this is what, again, the ascended master our Mori is telling us. There's a universal source around us that brings this divine intelligence, this divine understanding. And this is what the other masters bring us as well, like Lord Lanto, that talks about illumination. This is where awaken to your light, awaken to your energy, awaken to your source. And within that source light is the wisdom, is the understanding that you can express and bring, and start to harness, and also vibrate in that frequency. And you will start to then link to the other universal laws of like the law of attraction, you know the law of compensation, which is what you're creating, you receive to a day. So it's again, it's like a natural cycle. It's like a natural flow. Again, cause and effect. You start like actions create. Every action that you express creates a reaction, or an action, another action, or an outcome. And it's like the more you start to connect into that your spiritual sort of like source, and you express these qualities, you start to express wisdom, and you express you create in a different way. And this is the alchemy. This is the spiritual alchemy of creation. And again, this connects to Saint Germain, who's very much around transformation, but which is going for different states of being, and it's expressing consciousness in a different way. But it's also alchemy. It's learning to create and express in a way that creates harmony, creates balance, creates presence, creates peace. And this is why the angels work with us, because this is what the angels work in, and this is what all spiritual beings work in. They work in harmony, they work in presence, they work in peace. So, the main thing that I feel for a lot of us at the moment is to awaken to that channel, because we can only do it as a collective being. Everything's connected, nothing's separate. So in that sense, we're always connected, but we're always sort of, the more that we connect and the more we open and express, the more we become part of that universal source, that infinite source of consciousness, that infinite source of awareness. And then we start to then integrate that, bring it and manifest it. And again, this is where I've talked about like your higher your higher self. Your higher self is part of that universal source, that universal infinite being. Each and every one of us have access to that, and the more that we integrate it, the more we start to express it. But the more we come and bring online as well our human bodies, our human self, because when we integrate it with a higher self, then we vibrate at a different frequency, we vibrate at a different vibration, and light, and energy is expressed in a different way. It's expressed from a higher place, a higher consciousness, a higher understanding with a higher wisdom. And this is the awakening. This is the ascension process for each and every one of us to awaken to our higher self and to express wisdom in it, and express light in a way that brings harmony for ourselves individually, but also helps to connect ourselves with the other sort of like souls on the planet, but also helps us connect again with the universal beings. And this is what the guides and the masters are working on, to bring us back in online, so we can start to express light in a more spiritual way and live in a more spiritual reality, and create a more spiritual reality on this planet, and align it again with the infinite spiritual realities of the universal source and consciousness. That's the insight for today.